Welcome to our Value Innovation Pricing Vodcast, where we put value at the core of every conversation. I'm your host, Karen Chiang, Chief Value Officer at Ibbaka, where we believe that value isn't just a buzzword, it's the secret sauce that drives growth. Joining us today is a true pricing visionary, Dr. Stephan Liozu, a global leader in value-based pricing, business strategy, and innovation. Stephan is the founder of Value Interruption Advisors, a consulting boutique specializing in industrial, digital, and value-based pricing. He is the Chief Value Officer at Zilliant and has authored 6 books, including The Pricing Journey and Dollarizing Differentiation Value. Stephan, you've been described as an agent of disruption in the pricing world. What does value mean, and what recent impacts have you seen?
Well, value means a lot of different things for different people. For me, it means perceived value, first of all, but it also means the exchange between all the benefits we bring to customers and the price we are going to pay. So that exchange is quite important. I mean, and the value process is quite wide and deep. And But I like to be a little bit more formal and intentional when I define value because again, lots of different definitions.
Thank you, Stephan. And so when you talk about formality and intention, what are some examples you can share with us where formality and intention becomes really important when we bring these things to action?
Well, so you know, formality and intention means for me having a process to manage value.
Mhm.
So if and the first thing is going to be title, right? Are you a pricing manager? Are you a value manager? Are you full time on value? Are you part time on value? Do you have a formal customer value management process, CVM? And you'll see that in the SaaS space, you will see teams doing value engineering and business value assessments,
Mhm.
value consulting. And I imagine behind there is a process and there is a platform and systems. In other companies, it's very informal. You may have pricing manager or marketing product managers, and they might do some value work. It may be value creation, or it may be a little bit more pricing. So it's very informal. That means for me, it's not well managed.
Mhm. So both of us have undertaken the role Chief Value Officer. And I think that, I mean, the reason why I took on this role is because, as you know, for Ibbaka, we put value at the center and heart of everything we do. And we believe that when it comes to serving your customer, you really have to look at the value they perceive and see how you're generating value for them. Can you share more about this exciting role of CVO?
Yeah, so it's something that are very dear to my heart, and I've been a CVO for over a decade, and it's been a bit of a negotiation to have that title in all the companies that I've worked with. But it's once we understand the principle and why I'm doing this, both internally and externally, um, it brings really a focus on value that no one else has, and for me, I tell internal and external stakeholder, I'm the guardian of value. I make sure that value is everywhere, but there is also a formal process of managing value from creation to quantification to capture to delivery and to realization. As you know, that process can be quite long,
Mhm.
but you need to go from A to Z. Otherwise, if you break in the middle, then it's not being realized or it's not being created. So I like to have that title because then it allows me to go into different functions and convince them that there is value in everything we do, from production to supply chain to sales ops to you name it. You know, uh, and I go to Peter Drucker's definition of value, which is the existence of a business is to create value.
Absolutely. And yes, that process can be a fairly lengthy process. But I think we also know that it is a continuous process. So every part of that cycle feeds into each other. And I think the other point you mentioned is that, yes, value resides everywhere. It touches every aspect of the business. And so I completely agree with you that when we think about creation of value, it is a team sport. And
Mhm.
so we really have to look at that full team. The other point that I think you mentioned that is important is that it's both internal and external. I always say that, when we think about the stakeholders, we're creating value impact for sales, for customer success, for product, for delivery. We're creating value, of course, for our customers and how we enable them to create value. And of course, we also look at the finance side, which is value created for strengthening of valuation and strengthening of where should we place our investments. Uh, can you share with us, a recent example of where this has really worked well? And you don't have to necessarily mention
Mhm.
the sort of organization name that you worked with, but perhaps just share an example.
Well, so in my role of CVO at Zilliant, I spent quite a bit of time with all customers, frankly, and all prospects at the very beginning of the discussion, very early on the sales process. And I make sure they understand that the value of software is certainly quite real. And then we go through the pains that they're experiencing and the gains they're trying to achieve. So here I'm very involved with all the stakeholders at the customer accounts location to make sure that they understand that software is software, but it's all about the business side and the business value. So we go deep into solving the problems and achieving better levels of productivity and efficiency, and it's a real business value assessment. But it doesn't stop here because as at some point you got to realize that value. So then when we do the handover to customer success teams, then they need to make sure that we realize the promise that we gave at the very beginning. So in that sense, my role is very externally focused, and I bring a lot of reality in the delivery of software solutions that are supposed to bring the value. In my
Yeah.
former role at Thales, I was more an internal change agent where I need to convince 90,000 people that we need to focus on customer value. So the CVO role, it can be shaped in a different way. And that's what I like about it. It's never a boring day. You do all kinds of different things and you're internal, you're external. It's like I'm a floating electron, I call myself.
Perfect. I love that. And I like that example of that you gave of Zilliant, where you really start with value very early on from the sales cycle and have to carry it through to customer success. Because as you say, when the sales team is having that conversation, there's a value impact assessment, right? That their buyer customer is making, and they buy on that expectation. And then for customer success, they have to sort of prove that, yes, we have delivered on that value. And of course, the other thing that we notice is that sometimes value will shift over time. And so we have to be, as you say, very careful in having that customer value management system where we are tracking those shifts and that we move with our customer, so that we can, innovate and provide more value over time when we discover gaps. So I think that's a really, really important role. And of course, internally, making sure that the team is on board to really understand this and have those measures in place to really tackle and say, hey, yep, this is how we need to evolve, and bring those types of changes in mind. So in many ways, I think we act as not only promoters and cheerleaders, but change agents for our organizations and to impact change for our customers as well. So, Stephan, what are your top recommendations for our viewers who are really trying to embrace value and really take advantage of the disruption that will have positive impact for them?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and obviously, it would depend on the level of maturity of these accounts. Some accounts that I interact with have a very low level of marketing maturity or customer centricity, and then you got to start a different way. So I would gauge, first of all, if I'm talking to someone, I would try to understand their level of maturity, um, and depending on what the outcome is, I always like to have a stage of building a foundation of knowledge. So
Mhm.
my first recommendation is always make sure people speak the same language. They understand what value is, the definition, where it comes from, and start putting them in exercise action mode. So they not only listen to the concept, but they start applying it. And so for that, I would do some training with some workshops on extracting differentiation, understanding customer benefits. So very, very practical things. But the goal of this is to align, right? So that's number one. Number two is, I would say, the most complicated step of all of this is the value quantification, as you know. So I would put them in exercises of taking one of these differentiators and go all the way to quantification. So they see the light and they understand, wow, yes, it can be done. It's obviously a combination of arts and science, but I work with engineering firms that are getting right away and they're on fire, right? And the engineers like that stuff because they like mathematics, they like Excel. So that's number two. And number three, I would say at some point you need to industrialize. So
Mhm.
you've done the foundation, you've done POCs, you've done pilots. Now it's like, how do I scale my organization to do this systematically and consistently? And then this is where you need a platform. This is
Yes.
where you need a CVM platform to accelerate and industrialize.
Thank you, Stefan. And I think you that process is so neat and tidy. It's neat and tidy, but as you know, there's a lot of work that gets to that state of maturity of building alignment. And as you say, first for alignment, you need to have that common language around what value means. I think the other piece where you said that you really need to also have a system in place. So once you get to that alignment, working on that differentiation to then quantify and measure. But then once you have those things, how do you really put it into execution? And then by that time, you need that customer value management system. So for those of our audience who are looking at a customer value management system, what are the key components that that customer value management system should have?
Well, so that's a very good question. I would say right now, if you ask me, the number one issue in scaling software is data. So you need to have the value data for sure. So you don't have, I don't think it's a chicken and egg. You could start with the software and then get the data as you go,
Yes.
or you could do a blitz of getting the data because you have it and then you put the software on with it. But for me, the system is the engine. The value data is a fuel, and
Mhm.
um, so that's really number one. Number two is integration in the tech stack. you know, um, an average organization will use about 250 SaaS solution. It's crazy.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that is directly connected through APIs to the rest of the tech stack. It's embedded in your CRM, and you don't create a additional layer of complexity. So and then the last one is the outcome. What do you do with the outcome? So you have beautiful value briefs or value propositions coming out. Where is it going? And the connection to value-based selling is essential. Some
Yes.
companies will have technology to value sell. Other companies will still do paper and folders and PDFs, email. So and that's fine. But if it's not connected to the outcome, which is sales, then it's not going to be used.
Yeah. And as we know, sales is very much coin operated. And so they are also very, it's a different breed, right? There's a reason that successful salespeople are who they are. And they believe that, they're doing things well, especially the top guys, right?
Mhm.
So you have to make sure that that value impact, that time to value is close to immediate. Otherwise, it's very tough for the sales organization to
Mhm.
adopt these types of tools, right?
That.
So the other question that I have for you is, what are some of the key innovations that you are seeing in our space, Stephan?
Well, so frankly, innovation, the pace of innovation right now is crazy, and you know, um, I'm going to mention AI for sure. It's top of mind. But also that aspect of data that I mentioned to you before. There is there's lots of innovation in AI right now, and we're talking a lot about outcome based. I know you were talking about outcome based and the evolution of a pricing model for AI, but in
Yeah.
general, outcome based pricing is on the table. But imagine the time it took to go from transactional pricing to subscription, and then from subscription to usage, which was a couple of years really, and now we're already talking about outcome. And then it brings for me, it brings me to what's next. Outcome will be going around, and believe me, outcome is complicated, as you know. So
Absolutely.
that's one innovation. The second one is going maybe widening the pricing space to more of a monetization side. I've been writing about this a lot. I think the pricing profession need to expand their scope to include value, but to include also the much more in the quote to cash process. So some of the CPQ element, for example, and the integration in the monetization tech stack. So I see that coming and more, not as fast as I would like. Um, and then a big innovation that I see is the move away from science and focusing on more the organizational science. I see the need of organizational pricing scientists that will take care of the people side of pricing when AI is going to start taking more and more the science side of pricing. And I'm urging very, very often and in a very fiery manner the pricing people to get trained on soft skills to complement AI.
Yes. I think that's very, very, very true, Stefan. I mean, almost everyone so far on the show has talked about, just the advent of what AI can do for us. And I also recognize that, there's a human factor that still needs to be done, and
Mhm.
AI can't replace that. So as you say, there's that soft skills, which, and I think there's still that spark of creativity, because the AI is only as good as what the prompts are and what is fed.
Mhm.
So as you say, data plays a key role into this. But then I think the human mind, there's still sparking of imagination and really bringing those new ideas to the forefront. So, like
Right.
you, I'm also looking forward to understanding and seeing how this unfolds and what's next.
Mhm.
I think we do live in very exciting times, and I know that people say, okay, that's the Chinese curse, but but I think that there's obviously with exciting times, there's opportunity as well.
Mhm.
So, any last minute tidbits that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, I think we touched on the last question here for me. That element of mindset. Now we talk a lot about science and pricing for that is great. Don't get me wrong, but I get into this aspect of advanced leadership or quantum leadership. There's a lot of that's being written to how do you complement the power of AI with the power of leadership? How do you bring the people side to the level of the science that's being used in pricing? And for me, I would say to the audience, keep learning. Go far from what your skills are today, and learn stuff that would would never be in your agenda, like emotional intelligence, like storytelling, like creativity and brainstorming, because this is where you will be as needed as AI in the future. And those who don't have that learning mindset, that growth mindset, will be left behind, no doubt. And so when I do quite a bit of, as you know, coaching and training of pricing and value team, I encourage them, learn, spend time on learning every day, block a half an hour, learn, read a paper, go listen to a webinar, talk to you and Stephen. It's like you need to be a sponge of knowledge because the science is going super fast track and you need to learn as fast.
Perfect, Stephan. And thank you for sharing all of your wisdom, well, much of your wisdom with us in our talk. And of course, you are an avid writer as well. So in terms of learning, also check out Stephan's books. It's a wealth of information, and we're so lucky to have him today. So that brings us to an end of this episode of our value pricing podcast. A huge thank you to you, Stephan.
Thank you.
Again, really enjoyed having you on our show. And so if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, give us feedback, and share with with your network. And if there's topics you'd like to explore, please connect with me via LinkedIn or through Ibbaka. And we look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you very much.